Hey everyone, Rua here with the Q&A for the channel hitting 3,000 subscribers. I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but I really appreciate the support, encouragement, and the critique you've all given me ever since this passion project of mine started up. This game might be showing its age in a few ways, but it's good to see that the community around it is still going strong, after all this time. I've got quite the list of questions to go over here, so let's get going. Ashira asks, my question is, for a 6-man setup, what jobs would you use for the Helm NMs in Race and Jima? Also, don't have to put this one in the Q&A, but what buffs did you use for the melee Zerg on Water of Courage? The problem you're going to run into is that there is no static 6-man setup which covers all of the Helm NMs. My experience on them is also really raw, as I've not done an Aeonic run for what must be over a year now. The ones you can use in melee setup, I would go with Rune Fencer as a hybrid tank, Warrior and Samurai as your 2 DDs, White Mage, Bard, and Geomancer with a Corsair being used for pre-fight rolls before dropping. Standard fare really. The key buff for a Water of Courage Zerg is actually a maxed out Bar Thunderer and a Soul Voice Lightning Carol. Impact Stream Stun being used over and over will shut down a Zerg before you know it. Dekar1 asks, what is the exact relationship between Misery's damage taken and Cura? What are the specific numbers needed to max out the healing bonus for each tier? Would situations where you have tacticians roll up ever make using the Empyrean weapon skill Dagon on White Mage worth anything? Why does it seem that Crossbow has fallen to the wayside? I rarely see it used save for the occasional Gastro. Would you ever consider doing in-depth tutorial videos for Race and Jima Helm NMs? Lastly, which do you prefer, Star Trek, Star Wars, or Stargate? Alright, let's do these in order. Misery stores the damage the White Mage takes up to a certain amount, dependent on merits and JSE, before converting it to a straight increase to the next Cura spell potency. I'm honestly not sure, as Cura sees very little use. Well, certainly won't now with the latest patch, nice one. It's really hard to run out of MP on White Mage these days. I think the only time I ever run low is if I'm fighting something that uses Aspir 3 as an AoE or a strong virus effects. I can't foresee any situation needing Dagon really. I don't think I've actually ever used it. Crossbow's a one-trick pony with the Gastra. That's why it's the only one Rangers ever use. Back in the day, Warriors, Thieves, and even Dark Knights used to carry them with acid bolts, but given what we have now, it's just not worth losing those slots. Race and Jima Helm Guide, I'll consider it, but like I just said, I'm well out of practice on them. I'm a Trekkie through and through. I started young as well. Some of my best childhood memories were watching VHS tapes of Deep Space Nine with my brother and my father on weekends. Jordan Brown asks, do you plan to eventually do job guides for every job? Still waiting on that SAM guide, by the way. There's still a number of guides to do, but I'm not going to be able to cover everything. Samurai will get done. It might be after Scholar. I'm still considering the order. This person wanted to remain anonymous. This has been bugging me for a while, and I hope you don't mind me asking it. Where do you live? It's nearly impossible to catch you online on most days. I live in New Zealand, on the northern tip of its southern island. I recorded this a few weeks back when I was on a road trip. Should give you a rough idea of the scenery around here. I'm not sure where you're from, but I'll cover the usual bases. I'm 11 hours ahead of the UK, 16 ahead of the East Coast USA, and 19 ahead of the West Coast. Players on the West Coast will catch me for a few hours, since I usually clock out around 9 PM their time. On weekends it's much easier to find me, provided I don't have real life commitments. Since we're here, let's move on to this one. Coro Games asks, oh, so you're Australian? Oh god, don't ever let a Kiwi hear you say that to them. Nah, I've got a very lengthy story as to how I ended up here. I doubt people want to hear the whole story either, as this channel is for game content. Let's just say I'm predominantly English, but I've spent so much time in so many other places, my accent is the sum of my experiences. Here in Mercenary FFXI asks, if Square Enix made an FFXI anime, would you watch it? I'll be real, anime never quite appealed to me. Sure, I casually watched things like Pokemon when they were all the rage back in school, and I distinctly remember watching Full Metal Alchemist with my sister, but there's just something about the anime art style I don't like. I think it's kinda lazy. I've been meaning to watch Studio Ghibli's films though, they seem worthwhile. Can you recommend those if you've seen them? So, no, I probably wouldn't watch an anime based on this game's world, I'm afraid. T33 Dajaku asks, if you were to get pulled in and trapped in an FFXI SAO/.hack style and could only be one job, what job would you pick and why? I've never heard of those before, but I can discern the gist of what you're saying. Do you mean if I was stuck in this game in person? I'd opt to be a scholar or white mage. To be needed is to be protected after all. I wouldn't fancy my chances as one of the red shirt jobs which die way too easily. I'm looking at you, Corsair. You even have red shirts as your artifact and your Empyrean. Gaz Latham asks, what's your least favourite job and how come we've never seen a bard job guide? People who know me well in game know that I have a deep-seated resentment of Summoner, because it's so blatantly overpowered and because it's not been adjusted. If it was adjusted, people might use it for more than just its first order optimal strategy. You will see a bard guide someday. I don't have the 4-song harp yet, so I'm probably not in the best position to tackle it right now, unless showing how to play bard without that harp is better somehow. What do you think? Cross the Multiverse asks, since I've enjoyed your detour into lore videos, I guess my question can be about favourite characters, quest and or mission stories, and why, at least out of those, you haven't covered yet. I think my favourite character is Zeed. If you only associate with him during the Dark Knight questline, then you're getting nowhere near the full story with him. I'm seriously considering doing a full-length lore video specifically on him. People who know his story will absolutely know why. All the Serpent Generals also have very interesting backstories as well, so you will be seeing a video on them pretty soon. Oh, and finally, I think one of the funniest quests in the game is the Prince and the Hopper. It's just hilarious how things pan out. TordKW asks, my question is, how do you keep playing Final Fantasy XI? I've been playing since 2003, but always take a break from time to time. Guess I burn myself too fast. How do you do it? This is a really good question. It's an important one, and it's one I've thought on for a few days before coming up with a proper answer. I have burned out in the past, more than once, but I haven't for a long time since I last did. I hope I don't sound patronizing here, but how I do it is I have other things to do outside this game. That way, when I log on after potentially being away for a few days, I might have stuff to catch up on. I actually have a PlayStation 4 I like firing up whenever I just don't feel motivated to log on. When I've not been working on videos or watching Vikings with my housemate, it's been my go-to. I'm an avid fan of the Devil May Cry series for all its zaniness and insane action. I've been honing my skills on the latest entry, that's what you're seeing now, and I seriously think it's one of the best release valves for boredom I've ever encountered. If I'm not in a crazy action mood and want to remain in the realm of RPGs, then there's always the old faithful, Skyrim. Yes, seeing this clip is probably going to result in at least one person ending up on the cart ride to Helgen, and I apologise in advance for doing so. Games like Skyrim and The Witcher, which I picked up a copy of the other day, you can pick up and put down easily, and this helps a great deal. Single-player games are indeed alive and well, contrary to whatever nonsense EA might say, and I think their ease of access also has a large part to play in why they're cathartic when breaking the monotony that results in people burning out on online games. I guess the main takeaway from this is the old phrase, too much of a good thing can be bad for you. Rebellion Zero asks, what are your thoughts on White Mage being the only main healer since the beginning of the game? I know we have Red Mage and Scholar, but those seem like support healers rather than main healers. Would you have liked to have seen another main healer added to the game in the same way they added Rune for tanks? Scholar is a very competent healer. It's actually up next for a job guide, so this might be one of the most crucial ones I've done for some time, as I showcase exactly how and why it is. Scholar only really falls short with status ailment removal, as in removing more than one in one cast. White Mage really has it beat there. I think Square Enix missed a golden opportunity with Adeline to introduce Chemist as a healer. It could have had some very interesting mechanics as well. It could have used consumables with abilities to give very strong effects and cures to its group. Imagine ability or spell versions of the screens we get in Eshka areas, and you've got a rough idea of what I'm thinking. Taru Taru Curbs asks, will you ever do a scholar guide? Yep, it's next. John Mason asks, thought about shedding light on Dancer. I'm getting good feedback for passing well on Wave 3 with mine. Oh, I believe you. I absolutely believe you. I personally think Dancer is one of the most underrated jobs in the game. I'm nowhere near ready to be making videos on Dancer though. I do acknowledge it as a viable job for endgame content. The Moghouse asks, what is your current favourite pastime in Final Fantasy XI? Helping new or returning players gear up in Race and Jima. If such players start or come back only to be met with paywalls, they'll probably just turn right back around. That's how I see it anyway. I'm not going to kill the mercenary market myself, no way, that's never going to happen, but it is something I can do to help. I'm also looking forward to working on a lore project together. We'll need to go over it in Discord sometime soon, yeah? Colin Kleiman asks, what do you hope for a mobile Final Fantasy XI? Mobile gaming for me has become synonymous with microtransactions. I can only hope to high heaven they don't find ways to squeeze fans of the game for more beyond a sub fee. I think they tested the waters with MOG wardrobes, and evidently they were wise enough to not push it further. CM asks, would you ever play on one of those classic private servers that mimic how the game was back in 2007? You mean Eden or Nasomi? It's not my thing. I didn't like more than a few things about job balance back then, to be really honest. I've got a mixture of good and very bad memories of leveling Dragoon and Puppet Master to level 75 pretty much solo. Doomguy asks, do you use Project Taco? I know of Taco, I know people who use Taco, but for me the buck will always stop with Gear Swap. I do not use Project Taco. Ryan Eagle asks, what lure and or add-ons do you use to get your game to look this good? Do you mean my text DAT mods? They're the standard DAT mods from the View project. I'll link directly to them in the pinned comment. Just make sure you all watch the how-to video when you go about installing them though. This rig is actually really ancient otherwise. It's a hand-me-down I got from a really good friend. It just has a dedicated graphics card. There's nothing else really remarkable about it, I've been told. General rule of thumb with PCs and or laptops is to never get one with an integrated graphics card, especially if you're aiming for high-end gaming. I'll let others chime in here, they're probably more tech savvy than me. Stephen Krawchuk asks, Dark Knight solo on Kist when? You said you'd eventually come round to doing it since the Dark Guide. Yep, alright, here you go. David F asks, what's your favourite Final Fantasy games other than Final Fantasy XI? 9. 9 is the standout in the series for me. I wonder if they're going to remake it like they are currently with 7. It's the personal favourite of the series' father, Hironobu Sakaguchi, after all. I'm answering these next two together. Landon McGinn, ideas on what's coming at Final Fantasy XI's 20-year mark. Joshua Bernard basically asked the same thing. I think it's going to be the announcement that the game is going free to play. I can also see legacy servers being set up as well, servers which gradually unlock expansions and raise the level cap every 6 months or so. I doubt we're going to see a new expansion, as that would require a game engine overhaul, as there's apparently no more space to add such content anymore. It would be a major shock if it is indeed that. We still have the northern and southern continents to explore after all. It's a pipe dream, but you never know. Deving asks, do you have any tips for farming and beating Dynamis Divergence? Dynamis is easily farmed with a solid group of core players who can pick people up from outside if needs be. Above all, you need to know what route you're taking ahead of time, especially with Juno, because you need to know which statues trigger traps. The palace in Dynamis Juno is particularly infamous for this, so be very careful when you're there. Dynamis Wave 2 bosses, difficulty-wise if you ask me, go in this order from easiest to hardest. Windurst, Juno, Bastok, Sandoria. This is largely down to the aura effects they get below 50%. Windbursts inhibit TP as a minor inconvenience. Juno's Plague is easily countered with Samurai Roll and Refresh 3. Bastok, Slow and Addle make healing really difficult, but Regen 5 and Embrava from a Scholar can really help there. Sandoria is the absolute worst. Power up Geo Barrier and keep it up at all costs, as the boss there hits like a fucking truck and will easily one-shot multiple people when the defense down aura goes up. The key thing for all the fights is having a good red mage to reliably remove their self buffs. I can't believe that's something some groups still haven't cottoned onto yet. Jonathan Lisk asks, good luck with your PhD. I finished mine in 2015. Took 8 years. I applied to a few places during the last intake, but was unfortunately not taken on this time. One place was due to my preferred supervisor being on sabbatical, and the other two because I needed an intermediate grasp of a second language. I was recommended to apply again as interest had been expressed in my research project, and above all, its wider implications beyond simple academics. Considering Latin America is just to the south of where I could be, I've been working on learning Spanish in what little spare time I have available. 8 years, huh? I said in my personal statement that I thought mine would take roughly 4. Am I deluding myself there? Anthem127 asks, question is, have you fully upgraded any of the original relics, and do you think they are closer now to Aeonics if only missing the ultimate skill chains? I only have the Apocalypse upgraded because it's a survival weapon. I always keep to hand on Dark Knight. No relic is ever going to beat an Aeonic for damage. That was never their design intention. I can't think of a single relic which can stand up to an Aeonic for damage. Relics are meant to do things for their jobs that make their quality of life better. Mythics are meant to boost abilities and deal good damage as well. Empyreans are meant to really push white damage further, and Aeonics are meant for overwhelming damage, provided they can actually skill chain well. Okay, that's us done and dusted for this Q&A. I'll end this video by thanking you all again for your support and feedback in helping me improve this project ever more. You should be seeing my next major upload sometime in the coming weeks. Probably a lore video because I just released a job guide. We'll have to see. I'll probably put up a poll on my channel where people can vote for it. Keep an eye out soon. Anyhow, I'll sign off here. See you around.